Morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our December P3 Principal Spotlight. Today, we are excited to have two amazing principals from Williamstown Independent, Brandy Feagan and Carrie Wade, both of whom have participated in several P3 events in the past. Brandy, I know that you participated in the spotlight with Amy Allen last month, and you're also a member of the Commissioner's Principal Advisory Council. And Carrie, you are a scholarship recipient of the P3 Coach Approach for Principals Cohort 2. So thank you both for choosing to participate in P3 learning opportunities. To begin today, Carrie, would you please just tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then Brandy, if you'll do the same.
Sure. Good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of this activity. This is my second year here at Williamstown as the principal at the elementary school. Prior to that, the majority of my tenure was spent in Pendleton County serving as a teacher, counselor, and administrator. So very happy to be a part of the Williamstown instructional leadership team.
We're happy to have her. Brandy Feagan, and I am the junior senior high principal at Williamstown, so grades 6 through 12. This is my 9th year as the principal at Williamstown, and I have been here at Williamstown for 17 of my 22 years in education. So I was a teacher, high school English teacher here first, and then I moved on to school counselor and now the principal. So I'm excited to also join you this morning, Jenny, and get and share some information about our CSIP.
Well, we're just so glad that you're here to join us during this holiday break. This session is a bit different than the others in that we're pre-recording for the release date of December 28th. But I know that principals will be so grateful to hear ideas about how you are making the Comprehensive School Improvement Plan a living document that actually guides the growth and improvement of your school. And, I'm really intrigued to hear more about how you have moved from compliance to commitment when it comes to your CSIP.
Well, I think we'll just start by sharing a PowerPoint that we put together, or a Google slide that we put together.
Perfect.
We'll get that ready. Probably need to put it in presentation mode. So are you able to see that, Jenny?
Yes,
Okay.
perfect.
Awesome. All right, so yes, we really just wanted to make our CSIP real and to make it a living document and something that we were constantly referring to and also adjusting as we go along. And, we are blessed at Williamstown to be small enough that we collaborate a lot together, but I do think even larger districts could benefit from this collaboration that we've had and in building the CSIP, because really working together, I think, has made it
Absolutely
real for us. So,
and it's been really beneficial to me in just getting to know the team, because I'm a new member of the team. And while Brandy and I knew each other when, growing up through life, and Amy Harris, our assistant superintendent, who leads the work that we do on the CSIP and CDIP, she and I had a professional relationship prior to, but the collaboration is just very natural. It's very comfortable. And I would encourage other administrators, to seek that out, because it really is helpful as a new member of a team to have that time to openly talk with each other, and to just bounce ideas and work collaboratively, which was very natural.
yes.
And it made the process so much easier, to be honest. And I'm at the elementary level, so obviously the work that we're doing is going to build and lead, to that success with junior and senior high. So there really there's not an option to not be thinking about that.
So we just started by really talking about the key contributors to this, because developing your CSIP can be quite lonely if you're doing it by yourself, but we had a lot of contributors. So our whole administrative team has really collaborated to make sure that we have all of the pieces in our CSIP. Mrs. Middleton, our superintendent, started, I think, the process with big ideas. She, at our administrative retreat last summer, she wanted us to really be thinking about our big ideas for the year. And that really, I think, set the pace for our school improvement plan.
So, she's still holding us accountable to our our PGP, the process that we have. But essentially she kind of, I don't want to say she threw away the tool. She didn't, because she's still using it, but we just reformatted it. And she says, what are the 2 or 3 big things that you want to make sure that you support your staff in accomplishing, and things for yourself in your own professional learning? And yeah, Brandy's right. I mean, that really just kind of set the stage. And that was the first time that we're doing, like, approaching it different. And we're also doing it collaboratively, because we're at this retreat together. So I'm like, okay, well, what are you thinking are going to be your goals? Well, this is what I know for sure. We're kind of moving towards, what do we have that's in alignment? What's different? And that really did kind of set that framework up for us to be more communicative, just in general, about, well, what really are the big things that we'd like to do this year?
Right. And to focus on those big things, because we do a lot of things, and I think most schools do, but to really just focus in on what was going to make the biggest difference, and what we knew we could really put our focus in. And then, so Mrs. Harris, our assistant superintendent, has led with Carrie and I meetings throughout the CSIP phases that has really helped us, to collaborate and communicate on that CSIP building process. And then, of course, we'll take what we have discussed and lead our staff and our site-based members to the development of our CSIP. And that really included a lot of professional growth planning, and professional learning connections as well. That was another thing that we wanted to include, was our professional learning for staff.
We collectively, because we are so small, we did our council training together at the beginning of the year. And what we decided to have them do was the CSIP. Like, that was the training that we chose. So they deconstructed the CSIP together, and that was a really great process. It was good just for us as principals too, to go back through it again before we even started CSIP work. And that really helped all of the council members just to be a bit more knowledgeable about what goes in it, how you can kind of, where you get the information to put in it, understanding the key core work processes, because that can be a bit overwhelming. And we were really grateful for that particular training, because there's so many great ones to choose from. It was hard to decide, but obviously that turned out being just really, really beneficial.
Yes. And it just really started our whole year focused on continuous improvement. And so everything has really connected together in every way to create the CSIP. Let's see. Do you want to start on this
Sure.
one?
So we started last spring to get some information from our staff with regard to their professional learning needs, various surveys, the data review that we did as far as kind of launching us into where we would want to be in the fall. Big focus with standards-based grading, and a shift from a grading culture to a learning culture was really important to us, with a focus on assessment literacy and literacy improvement, along with incorporating math coaching and intervention. It was some of the data from that helped us to be able to determine where to use our ESSER funds with requests for staff where we thought we needed the support the most. And teachers were a part of that process from start to finish, which was great.
So yes, those identifying early on the professional learning needs then led to our professional growth goals. So knowing what we needed to focus on to help staff, but also for our own growth throughout the year. And that helped us create our big ideas document that Mrs. Middleton had prepared for us, and really just helped focus us for the year. And then work with our staff on their professional growth goals, just to make sure, and that started in August, but to make sure everything was just really focused on, our goals. And I'll let Carrie talk about how she worked with staff on her elementary goals.
Well, and because they were aware of what the professional learning needs were, and in my building, we also are starting 2 new programs this year, which was a very big step. We are implementing a new reading writing program through Scholastic, the Scholastic Literacy, and with math, we're using a Hufflin Mifflin Harcourt into math. And our staff participated in the review process of math programs. They utilized the high quality instructional resources rubric through KDE, and we had a partnership with them throughout the process. It was about a 6 to 7 week process in the spring. So there was a lot of investment in the continuous improvement building and them being a part of a program review, which I had never been a part of, and none of my staff really had been a part of anything quite to that level. So that really set the stage for them, as well as like really digging in deep. Where do I want to grow? This, going through that process really challenged them in lots of ways that they didn't expect. So when we came to like developing growth goals, the majority of them chose to really dig in deep with things specific to math or reading, because we did have new programs, but even goals that they wanted to continue. Project-based learning is a definite a key area for a lot of my staff, is digging in through the use of those programs. And had they not been a part of that work last spring, I think they may not have seen the connections to the depth in which they saw this fall. And the beauty of that is then they know through just their networking who has shared goals. So then they're supporting one another with that, collective efficacy and the natural collaboration across grade levels, not just within grade level teams. And that's been beautiful to see that develop, and for them to get excited to support one another.
And similarly on my end, I had my staff work in teams and departments to develop team and department goals for curriculum and instruction and assessment. And then I wanted them to use those goals kind of like the old student growth goals that we had, but to create their individual professional growth goal, just to make sure that everything was pieced together and there's a clear connection to everything that we were doing, our professional learning, the identified needs for our students. So just bringing it all together. And then of course we meet throughout the year as teams, but also individually to look back at those goals, their professional growth goals. And now that there's a clear connection to those goals in the CSIP, it just brings everything back full circle. And there's just that constant connection to everything that we're doing.
Yeah, a lot of positive feedback from staff that happened to be in the observation cycle this fall. Is this the relevance that they spoke to? I've not really gone back to my goal as frequently as I have this year. And they weren't really expecting to do that, but it was just a natural part of, program implementation, the partnership that we have with Scholastic for professional learning within their program, and then the implementation of some of the tools that I'm learning from the coach approach training. So the dialogue is just happening more regularly.
Right.
And that's been real exciting to see that develop.
Yes, and naturally, because it's not just the compliance of we have to do our professional growth goal. It's really, this has a purpose. It has a bigger purpose to the school and to everything that we're doing.
So with our planning process, definite shout out to Ms. Harrison, the work that she has facilitated with us in that, she has scheduled meetings with Brandy and I as a team, and has created some templates so that when we come into those meetings, essentially we're able to kind of work through a worksheet, so to speak. And as we're talking about the different elements in each of the phases, we're, kind of typing in notes within this working document before we go into put the actual data into the live site. So that was really helpful. Essentially like a planning tool with each one, and we were able to to have that open dialogue. She was able to challenge us with some other questions, and then when we get to the point of entering into the system, then it's just a simple copy and paste, and we're able to share each other's verbiage. Sometimes it's just making sure that we're saying a lot of the same things, but making sure that we're being congruent with how we're doing that across the district as well.
Right. So I can share those, the tools that we use. They're just really simple Google documents, but they're nice little charts. So I'll show that in a minute. But we were just able to see, to collaborate and see, what we're saying and how they connect, how everything connects. And then, so that was our first meeting. And then our second meeting was to really develop our goals and to focus on what we're already doing. I think that's the one thing that we really wanted to do with our CSIP this year is just, you can get caught up in a lot of things that we're doing, because we do a lot of things. So we really just wanted to focus on the main things. So we, instead of for our goals using all of the KSA data, just saying that's Kentucky Summative Assessment, we decided to use our STAR Renaissance data for our proficiency and growth goals, because it's real data that we have constant access to. So whenever students take a benchmark assessment or an interim assessment, we can pull that up and we can refer back to our CSIP, and we will know if there's been growth or not. And then finding real data for some of the other goals was a little bit more daunting. But we were creative in using TCT and ACT data for science in our activities and our objectives. So we tried to find ways to use interim data that is readily available to teachers as we could.
Mhm.
So then a couple of other notable items. So when we were talking about our goals, we just decided we were going to focus on a 1-year goal
1 year
instead of a 3 to 5 year goal, because we don't know what the assessment, might look like in the next 3 to 5 years. So we just wanted to focus on the 1-year goal. That's why we looked at our STAR data, or we used that to develop our 1-year goal.
Well, and then the other component, since we have been utilizing Renaissance, the platform, for several years, is we were able to look at longitudinal data for the same students. And that was really helpful. And that's helpful to share with staff, because it's real easy right now to kind of get lost in some of the terminology as far as like an assessment gap or an achievement gap. So we really tried to shift the focus on the accelerating learning versus thinking about a remediation mindset, and really looking longitudinally, because we have that data in STAR. We're not able to do that really with the K-Prep and now KSA data. So there really was no question about relevance, but now we're even able to formulate with STAR this year and really looking at kind of creating a tool that we'll be able to look at more regularly using that. Not that we really didn't have that before, but with greater intentionality and usability, just because that's, we're becoming more practiced with the components, and in utilizing some of the other tools within the Renaissance platform that really help our teachers see the relevance. Programs like Freckle, that's one that we both utilize, that teachers use on a daily basis, and they're getting data daily. So they're getting that information regularly versus just maybe once a year like we would have with KSA.
So then for our objectives, since our goals were 1-year goals instead of 3 to 5 year goals, our objectives, we utilized our interim checkpoints. So just trying to find those interim points of STAR data or teacher data when we could. For our strategy, instead of focusing on several of our key core work processes, we focused on key core work process 3, design and deliver assessment literacy, because we felt like that's really what everything comes back to, is making everyone more, familiar with assessment literacy and standards-based grading, reviewing our policies and things to make sure that they're in alignment with what our goals are and what we want to accomplish.
Well, and when we completed the key elements of teaching and learning for that needs assessment, we went through each of the key core work processes as a component of that tool, and we changed the language in there to be very user friendly. We were looking at the different components within those key core work processes, but instead of just listing bulleted items like we would have done in the past, we were using our own language in relation to those bulleted items. Like Brandy said, well, what are we currently doing, or what are things that we're kind of looking towards? So that was a good working tool for us as well, because all of the work processes, they're all wonderful. We really use those, all parts of them, with all the work that we do. And so that was a really good piece as well to kind of get that first snapshot. And then we were able to dig in deep with number 3 as a key focus of our work.
Right. So again, all of our activities are just real instructional activities and professional learning activities that our staff are committed to and are currently working on. And then we have those progress monitoring and measures of success with real programs that we use daily and we have immediate access to. And then one real key piece of this whole process, I think, is that at the end of each 9 weeks, we are talking with our staff. So on November 8th and 9th, we had a professional learning day for our staff. It was just a work day to review curriculum and instruction and get feedback from staff on how things were going, what their needs were. And then on January 3rd, before students come back, we'll have another day to work with staff to do the same sort of thing, to look back at curriculum and instruction and our CSIP goals and our professional growth goals to make that connection again. All right, so that's what we've got.
Wow. That's a lot, actually, and I'm excited. I'm excited for you to share these slides with us so that we can share them with other principals on our website, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
We have permission to do that. Gosh, I was just taking some notes, jotting down some things as you were talking, and I saw Keith doing the same, so he might have some additional questions and comments as well. I love the intentionality that your district and your schools have taken on this intentional focus on data and using real data and data that's meaningful to the stakeholders involved, right? The things that are meaningful in this. I heard you talking about, that teachers are using their PGPs, like really utilizing that. It seems like it's spilled over into some other processes that exist within this thing called doing school, and
Right.
how is it, how is it, when you're progressing, how do you know when students are having the opportunities to experience education in ways that they haven't been in the past because of this focus on intentionality. So first, kudos to you two and to the Williamstown Independent School District for all of the work that's gone into getting all these different voices involved, and your site-based councils involved. So I'm also hoping, and I wrote down here, tools, some of the tools, maybe if you would, anything that you have that might be helpful, you think that it might be helpful to other principals to see some tools, so that they can steal some ideas and maybe
Sure.
tweak them and make them their own, for their own context. If you'll share those with us, then we'll be happy to, we would love to post those on our website as well. And then I had a question. So I'm unfamiliar with Freckle. What's Freckle?
Freckle is a program within the Renaissance platform. We specifically use it for reading and math support, but it does cover science and social studies as well. For our accelerated learning, or our RTI, that was something new that we actually incorporated in our master schedule this year. We called it Win Time, What I Need. So everyone at all their levels can be working within the program. It's not just about students at the lowest level, which I really love. It has adaptive components to it. Teachers can assign specific tasks based on current standards, and they can also assign specific tasks within that adaptive piece for additional practice that students can work on during designated times during the school day and at home, which is what's really great. Is it's not just a networked program that they can access it. At the elementary level, of course, it has like a little novelty icon. It's a little piglet that they love it. They get to deck out their little freckle pig. And there's some coins. So there's a little bit of that kind of intrinsic motivation.
The junior, senior high kids like that too. They like to dress their little
Avatar,
freckle pig with their with items that they've earned.
But
it speaks with STAR. So
yes.
it takes their STAR scores and it adapts lessons, based on their STAR scores. So it's really nice to have that in place to give some acceleration activities for students.
And we've seen a lot of growth through the incorporation of that program. We call it like a soft opening that we did with implementation last spring, instead of putting a real heavy push on our staff, obviously in the COVID year, to say you have to implement this right now at this many minutes per day. We just said, hey, you have full access to the program. These are some of the key things we'd like for you to try out with your students. And approaching it that way really has made a huge difference with staff buy-in and even student buy-in, because teachers will go in and they'll find different pieces that they really like. And then they'll become little mini experts on those components of the program, and then they share back out. And so that's really kind of how the implementation took off. And we were invited to actually support Renaissance at CASA this summer with our use of Freckle, kind of how we rolled it out, because it was very informal, but we saw almost double the growth in the period of time in which we did that soft implementation. So we're like, that's something to think about, because we always do these hard and steadfast implementation, and doing it a different way, really, it unexpectedly helped with buy-in. And that's really helped them be a little bit more comfortable with implementing this fall on a more regulated basis, just because we are using it for, some different components with that student learning piece. So.
That is really interesting. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Keith, I saw you making some notes. What questions or comments do you have for Carrie and Brandy?
Yeah, well, I also want to thank you for doing this today. It's very much appreciated, and I think that there's a big desire for making the CSIP, since we all have to do it, to make it real. And so, thank you guys for speaking to that today. You spoke a little bit in generics about you were going to narrow it down and have one big thing that you focused on to make sure that people were, that it wasn't too much. Which I think that's a problem a lot of areas with, evaluation and all kinds of things, but CSIP as well. Would you care to share what you ended up landing on, and kind of talk maybe how you ended up narrowing it down to just one or two things?
Sure. Do you want to maybe share
The document?
Yes.
So I'm going to share with you another document that we used. I can pull it up here. This is one right here.
One focus, is this how you came up with your focus on your key core work process 3? Okay.
Yes, this is part of that. Yes. So this is the data presentation that we actually gave to our Board of Education, once we received our Kentucky summative assessment data. So several different things here, but what Carrie and I worked on together was, I'll just go to this page. This is our continuous improvement focus page. So you can see that it goes across the district. So we identified specific areas that individual schools needed, but really it all just comes down to that standards-based instruction and grading. Dr. Gusky he spoke with us and our staff before school started, because that had been already identified as something we needed to, just revisit and look at. But it all goes back to the reading and the math, which is what we needed to focus on, and science, which we had identified as areas for improvement. And we thought, well, if we can improve assessment literacy in those areas, then student achievement will improve. So that's really how we kind of decided, after looking all together at elementary needs, junior and senior high needs, and just bringing it all together. So,
and we each did
an action plan.
Action plan. And what was great about this is, so Keith, this kind of breaks it down to more specifics. So in each of the core subjects that we knew were areas for target, then we went in and we listed, well, what are the specific activities and or programs that we're going to make sure that we're implementing with fidelity, and that we're monitoring for that implementation. And so this was like that when we were talking about the group brainstorming, because we were working on this simultaneously with one another, because we do have some overlap with some of our programs. And so from doing this step together, then this is really what guided our work when we got to the actual CSIP, and then kind of doing almost like a backwards planning, because we knew that those were current programs or activities. And so then how can we work that into the CSIP so that it's relevant and it's all connected back to those components?
So we literally shared documents.
Yeah.
I mean, we were working in it at the same time. And, sometimes we were together, but sometimes we were at home or in our own offices working on these same documents and, kind of reminding each other, hey, don't forget to add this, or, go back to that, or, but we just all shared these documents and we're working it constantly together.
And shared format was important too, because, I think that would be another piece that even if you're in a larger district and you're wanting to maybe use some of these tools, just this consistent format was really helpful to kind of have those ideas shared even at different levels, but it looks the same for your stakeholders and for each other. So you're not having to spend time trying to figure out what this is trying to tell you because the format is consistent.
Right. So this document that I'm sharing is another document that we worked in together. And this is how we developed our CSIP goals, this document. But a lot of the same information, that was shared, but just working in it together. And it was really nice to have this because, for example, here on trends, I saw that, or one of us saw that somebody had said disrespectful behavior is the #1 discipline issue. Oh yeah, well that is. So I'm going to add that to mine as well. That's something that we need to address. So just being able to work in these documents together is extremely helpful. And keeping us focused, because there were other things that we were like, we need to take that out. I mean, we do that, but that's not really our focus this year. So it was just good to have that constant collaboration.
So that's really important to hear too. I think that goes along with what Keith was saying. So once you develop that focus, like staying true to that focus and then removing the other things that are on the peripheral of that so that you can stay true to it. And I heard what you said about the other key core work processes. It's not that you have no focus on the other key core work process, but when you focus on the third key core work processes, then the others can help to inform that. But your focus, the data that you're gathering is all around key core work process number 3.
Yes.
So I love that intentional focus.
Well, and one of the other components too, like where Brandy mentioned, our big ideas that are essentially our principal professional growth plan, those are all embedded in this as well. So one kind of sidebar story I can share about like project-based learning and rubric development, which that rubric development is a piece of that assessment literacy. That was a key focus when Dr. Gusky came in. And as teachers are working on building those rubrics, they're digging into their pacing guides and their curriculum maps, and students are becoming an active creator of those rubrics, and they're deconstructing standards. And that has just been a really beautiful evolution to see. So it's like some of the things that you have is goals within your CSIP about like rubric development or student voice, that because we chose to focus just on one key core work process and really dig in, I think that has really helped kind of channel the energy and the focus. And project-based learning supporting that is a part of my principal PGP. And how do I get maybe some of my, my teacher leaders to share with one another? And then how do I get feedback? Because I need to provide the superintendent evidence of my own professional learning with my teachers. So it's like they're helping me help them through the process. And when we meet in our faculty meetings, we have like this ongoing Google Doc, right? Okay, add your recent PBLs in there. Let's do a 2-minute share out. So they're essentially collecting evidence for me to then share, but they're sharing with each other. And by really focusing in on some of those pieces, we're all working collectively, even myself with what I'm, learning to grow to help support their work. And without the intentionality of the focus, I don't know that would have happened organically. Right. I think we would have still been kind of working in, I don't want to say isolation, but
it would have been there, but it wouldn't be as intentional as we've made it. Because we chose to focus on, to have that focus and to continually refer back to it. and not just let these be compliance documents that we
Right.
check off, the box and have them completed.
Yeah. As you all were talking, it really made me think about the criteria that we use in Kentucky for Success for both principals and teachers. And for principals, the Professional Standards for Educational Leaders, the PSEL. I heard a lot of connections to standards 6 and 10 around, the support to your teachers in standard 6, and then also in standard 10, school improvement. So, that's just a direct connection. And then for your teachers, 3D, assessment and instruction. Most definitely, I can see a lot of connections there that maybe your teachers are making with their criteria for success as well, with the framework for teaching, maybe around 3D. So that's exciting. Thank you. Keith, did you have any other questions?
The only other thing that I jotted down that I'd like to know a little bit more about was you mentioned that the SBDM went through a specific training for helping to construct the CSIP. Is that through KDE? Is that what they provided there, or is there a different organization that you went through for that training? I'd just like to hear a little bit more about it.
Our assistant superintendent, Amy Harris, she led that, but it is the training that's provided by KDE.
Mhm.
So it's the continuous improvement training for site-based members. But yes, that was definitely, that got us all started on the right foot too, from the very beginning, because everybody, all stakeholders, were involved in that continuous improvement focus for the year. So I think Carrie's going to pull out what the actual name of it is.
Yeah, it was the council's role with continuous improvement.
Great.
And it was the 3 hours that we did, the 3-hour refresher.
But it was so nice because it was elementary and junior, senior high council members together. So you have, everybody. And of course, we did split up and talk about, of course, elementary needs and junior, senior high needs. But it was so great to be all together and talking about those needs and seeing those connections that we all have. So that was great training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I had that as one of my questions too, Keith. So thank you for asking that. Well, it sounds like this is a lot of work.
Yeah, but it's really been like, it has seemed like less work this year because I think we've been so focused. I feel for the first time in 9 years, I really feel like my CSIP is a living, real document that, that I can really refer to, and that I'm not afraid to change if we need to. If we recognize or see that something isn't working, being able to say, okay, we need to, switch something or change an activity or add an activity. So I think it's been really good. It is a lot of work, but I think it's the focus and the intentionality that we've given it has really helped keep us all on the right track.
Well, and, it's not, each thing is something new. One has built off the other, and it's just kind of been an evolutionary process. I did spend time when I was an assistant principal in my last district working on CSIP development. That was my first exposure to it. And I enjoyed the process. But much like Brandy, this is really the first time that I feel like we've kind of, I don't want to say been in control of the process or kind of what goes in, because we took a risk and made the language our real language instead of maybe just copying and pasting things from the resources. And I'm not sure why I don't want to say we're afraid to do that before, but why we weren't doing that before, I think is more of the question. In really simplifying the language, and it makes it easier for us to monitor. It makes it easier for the different stakeholder groups. They could look at it and go, oh, I know what that looks like, or I know this language, I know, what this is. And it's just is really just help with communicating, across the board.
That is huge. Like taking something that you're going to have to spend time on anyway, even if it's something that's even if it's pencil whipped and made up, it's you're having to take your time out of your day to do it anyway. So you took something that could have been made just at a very, surface level compliance effort. And instead, it sounds like your entire district has made this something that certainly has moved from compliance to commitment for improvement.
Well, and staff have given us good feedback on it's not like with the different professional learning opportunities or programming, not the one and done approach, that we are coming back to it. And they do feel like they've been provided with an opportunity to dig a little bit deeper and for their professional learning to be supported, because we are cycling back, because we're just not, I don't want to say not doing that many things, because like as Brady said, we're always doing lots of things, but the intentionality with the key, components that we identified helps them to feel like they're more invested in the process too, because of those wraparound supports and coming back to have discussions about things, supporting, peer-to-peer observations. I know that's something that we've really seen a growth with. And my teacher's going to observe her teachers in the junior senior high for a writing lesson or social studies or science or co-teaching, just different things like that. Is really building that culture of shared leadership and just shared growth, because we do have very specific things. And there's different things. I mean, she has things at junior senior high that I may not have, but we do have some that are in alignment, and that just really helps for those vertical discussions and relevance.
And building on those strengths and areas for growth too. If the writing scores in the junior senior high are excellent, this year, of course we want to maintain that, but being able to have newer teachers or less experienced teachers come up and observe some lessons from our teachers is great, and vice versa. We've got teachers in the junior senior high going down and being involved in project-based learning at the elementary, and that's wonderful. That's just making those connections, because we have that unique ability here, because literally you walk down the hallway and you're in the elementary, where other schools don't have that. So being able to just work together and make those sorts of things happen has been huge this year.
Yeah, you've empowered your teachers really to own their own learning.
Yes.
Yeah. And in doing so, you're empowered,
Absolutely.
right, to help move the school forward. I love
Well,
it.
and we've even tried intentionally with some of our scheduling of things. So our PLC days are on Wednesdays. Now we're alternating weeks, so that at least it's in the middle of the week, which is the day typically least impacted with other activities or events. And if there's an opportunity for any vertical collaboration, then we know it's just that particular day of the week. If we need to find internal coverage or have subs or something come in. And it's the same thing with our faculty meetings. They're on a Wednesday afternoon, same time. So if we had the need to bring everybody together as a district-wide staff or pods, we could do that. We meet individually, but just trying to think about even things like that with some intentionality, is if we needed that time for some vertical collaboration or meeting, that we've built that in place. Really thinking about how we could even do that next year. What were some things about this year that we thought worked well, or maybe we didn't quite fully utilize, that then we can expand on even as early as next semester. So continuing
to gather data, analyze that data in order to make decisions for the future. So that sounds like a great plan. Well, listen, we thank you so much for taking your time out on this day during your holiday break to share with us, and more importantly, to share with the field, because I know right now, there are a lot of stressed out leaders who are trying their best to make this real. And I think you've shared some real strategies that folks can implement right away and also plan for next year. So thanks for that. Again, we want to be sure and share, I'll share your contact information for folks to reach out to you, since we didn't have, we are recording this early. And then also, if you would just share the resources, we'll make sure and make that available.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so definitely just thank you so much. And before we go away, let me share my screen real fast. I would love to make sure that people know how to continue to find the information about the principal spotlights. Making sure you can see my principal spotlight screen.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So again, we thank Carrie and Brandy for sharing their awesome ideas and their process for creating the school improvement plan. You can find the Principal Spotlight on the Principal Partnership webpage. If you either go to the KDE page or our Google site, you will be able to connect to the Principal Spotlight page and hear the recordings from other Principal Spotlights in these mini sessions, especially today. And then also these will be included on the P3 podcast that Keith is the leader on the P3 podcast, and you'll see upcoming episodes, and one will include this episode on CSIP creation, making it real, with Brandy and Carrie. We invite everyone listening to sign up, and Carrie and Brandy, definitely, we would love to have you share your experiences again at Ed Camp. We're looking to have a lot of principals statewide and other leaders statewide to join in. It's on January 19th, 2022, and it is a full day for principals and school leaders to learn and to grow together. And if you're listening in, we invite you to participate and to also share your story with others on this day, because we never want you to feel alone in the principal seat. It can be a lonely seat, but it doesn't have to be. We would love for you to connect with us, P3 team, Stacy, Keith, and Jenny. Or if you want to know more about how to make your CSIP real, we would love for you to connect with Brandy and Carrie from Williamstown. All right. Well, I think that's it, ladies. Again, just thank you so much
Thank you for having us.
for your servant leadership. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Have a great holiday.
You too.
You're welcome. You too.